If you made it this far, you're already done something important. You didn't just consume ideas, you stayed with them. You slowed down long enough to notice patterns and you've returned. That matters because part 3 is about what happens after the system starts listening back. This part of the audiobook is called Evolution, not because you're trying to reinvent yourself, but because systems, when revisited over time, begin to change the people who use them. Not dramatically, not overnight, quietly, through repetition, through reflection, through returning to the same questions with slightly wiser eyes. From productivity to wisdom, earlier we talked about clarity, about capture, about loops. Part 3 zooms out. It asks a different kind of question. What happens when you keep looping for months, for years, instead of chasing the next breakthrough? What happens when your system doesn't just store your thoughts, but starts surfacing who you're becoming? Themes that you'll encounter here in this section will explore why wisdom is built through repetition, not intensity, how returning to the same insights sharpens judgment over time, why AI works best as a mirror, not a guide or authority, how guardrails protect agency in an age of automation, and how your loops quietly train your future self. This is where Digital Kaizen moves from workflow to identity. How to listen to part 3. This part rewards patience. You don't need to take notes. You don't need to apply anything immediately. Let the ideas echo. Let them surface memories. Let them stir questions that you don't have answers to yet. That's not confusion. That's integration. We'll begin by talking about wisdom, not as perfection, but as pattern recognition earned over time, about what it means to loop toward clarity instead of chasing certainty. Let's begin part 3. Part 3, evolution, living the system, letting it shape you. The spell and the signal. There's a moment right after I speak a well-formed prompt into GPT when it doesn't feel like typing. It feels like casting a spell. A few words shaped by emotion and memory, and suddenly, clarity, insight, strategy. The invisible takes form, not automation, but invocation. And when that moment hits, it feels familiar. I'm back in the worlds that shaped me. Case jacked into the matrix. Johnny Mnemonic wired for insight. Chapter 15. Looping toward wisdom. How returning to the right thoughts makes you wiser over time. If I had to pick a definition for wisdom that didn't sound like it came from a fortune cookie, it would be this. Wisdom is high-level pattern recognition, earned through lived experience and shaped by consistent reflection. It's what lets you notice the curves in the road before the signs show up. It's the gut feeling that says, this looks familiar and I know how it plays out. And it rarely arrives through a single breakthrough moment. Wisdom is built by looping, returning to the same conversation, the same friction, the same insight, but with just a little more perspective than the last time. Digital Kaizen, at its heart, is a practice of capturing those loops. And this chapter is about how those loops, when practiced with intention, don't just make you more productive, they make you wise. What wisdom looks like, spoiler, it's not perfection. Wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about recognizing the questions you'll always return to. It's knowing that you always get anxious before launching a new idea, and it passes. That certain conversations with your spouse always require more patience. That your energy dips every Wednesday at 3 p.m. and planning deep work then is a setup. This kind of awareness doesn't come from ambition. It comes from observation, from patterns, from feedback loops you've built and revisited, until they became intuition. Wisdom isn't a sudden download. It's a slow unveiling. Why loops are the path, not the detour. We're taught that progress is linear. Set goal, then make plan, then execute, then win. But real growth looks more like a spiral staircase. You loop back to the same spot, but you're just a bit higher. You see more. You bring more context. You're different. That's the heart of Digital Kaizen. Every week you return to the same voice memos, the same themes, it's the same questions, but now with more clarity, more context, more capacity. It's not boring, it's powerful, because the you that listens this week isn't the same you that captured it last week. How the loop sharpens pattern recognition. Let's be practical. Each time you review your thoughts, voice notes, or AI summaries, you're engaging in an act of pattern recognition. It's what behavioral scientists call metacognition. Thinking about your thinking, but what you're really doing is building a map of yourself. Here's how the pattern building process works inside the loop. 1. Capture raw experience, a thought, an emotion, a meeting recap, a journal rant. 2. Reflect with distance. Later you notice, this is the third time I've said this. 3. Extract meaning. What am I not seeing? What's the signal? 4. Make a micro adjustment. One small shift. 5. Revisit, see if it holds, see if the friction returns, see if the signal changes, and slowly the system starts whispering to you, you've done this before, you know how it ends, choose better. That's wisdom, and it comes from the loop, not from the goal. Real life example, wisdom on the freeway. I talk about this one a lot because it's simple, relatable, and real. Every morning I drive my son to school. Same road, same left turn bottleneck onto the freeway. If you don't know it, you'll get stuck in that left lane forever. But I've done it enough times to know, take the right lane early, merge later, faster, smoother, saner. That's not clever. That's not genius. That's experience turned into intuition. That's looping toward wisdom. It's a small example, sure, but it mirrors what happens in life. How many of us keep sitting in the left lane of a decision we know won't work? How many times do we repeat a stressful workflow, an unhealthy relationship pattern, or a self-doubt spiral because we didn't pause to reflect? Digital Kaizen doesn't give you shortcuts. It gives you loops, and those loops point you to the better lane if you listen. How AI supercharges the loop without removing the humanity. One of the hidden superpowers of AI in the Digital Kaizen system is its ability to help you see yourself sooner. You might not notice that you've mentioned a fear 5 times in 3 weeks, but ChatGPT will. You might forget that you already solved that problem last quarter, but your fireflies.ai meeting summaries still remember. Here's how AI helps you loop toward wisdom. Memory extension. You no longer rely on remembering past patterns. Pattern surfacing. AI can tag themes like resistance, excitement, or avoidance across your voice memos. Synthesis. You can ask, what themes have I repeated over the last 30 days, and get an answer in seconds. Emotional mirroring. Tools like Descript let you hear yourself again. The tone, not just the text. The loop doesn't replace your judgment, it sharpens it. It gives your reflection a co-pilot. Practice. Looping toward your own wisdom. Here's a simple, repeatable process for using your loop to build wisdom over time. Weekly wisdom loop. 1. Pick a voice note or journal entry from last week. 2. Bonus if it felt emotionally charged at the time. 3. Listen or read it with fresh eyes. 4. Notice tone, word choice patterns. 5. Ask one reflection question. What am I really trying to say here? What decision am I avoiding? Where else is this showing up? Surface a micro insight. I get overwhelmed when I don't block time after meetings. This client dynamic keeps draining me. Why do I keep saying yes? Name the pattern. 1. Give it a label. Boundary creep. Overfunctioning. Quiet resistance. And 2. Loop forward. 3. Next week, check if that pattern shifted, if it returned, if it evolved. This is how your voice notes become a trail of wisdom, breadcrumbs. Loop Lab note. Turning repetition into recognition. You'll know the loop is working when you stop feeling frustrated by the repetition and start feeling curious about the pattern. It often sounds like, I've said this before, haven't I? This keeps coming up. Why? I know this feeling. What's the upgrade I'm being offered? In our house, we call this the third sighting rule. When a theme or idea shows up 3 times, especially from unrelated sources, it's no longer random. It's asking for attention. When this happens in your system, don't rush to fix it. Sit with it, tag it, speak it out loud. These patterns are the breadcrumbs your wiser self has been leaving behind. Final thought, the wisdom is already there. If there's one thing I want you to know, it's this. You don't need to become someone else to get wise. You just need to return to what you already know, but with better tools for listening. Digital Kaizen is not about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming more human, but with systems that support reflection, pattern recognition, and self-trust. Wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers in the repetition. And if you loop long enough, you start to hear it. You start to trust it. You start to embody it. That's how we grow. That's how we lead. That's how we become someone future us would be proud of. Not by doing everything right the first time, but by looping well and listening deeper each round. Chapter 16. Chapter Human First, AI Second. Building the Partnership Loop. There's a golden rule for any Gen Xer raised on late-night sci-fi and Saturday morning cartoons. There are only two ways this whole AI thing ends: Skynet or R2-D2. Either the robots wipe us out with glowing red eyes and a vengeance complex, or we get a witty little droid who helps us save the galaxy, one beep at a time. I'm voting R2, but here's the catch. We get R2-D2 only if we stay in the driver's seat. And that's what this chapter is really about. Staying human-led in a system that increasingly invites us to outsource the loop. AI is powerful, but it's not you. Let's get this straight. AI is fast, scalable, unrelentingly efficient. It can write, summarize, tag, transcribe, reflect, cluster, and coordinate before you've even had your first cup of coffee. But it doesn't care what matters to you. It can't feel. It doesn't know what lights you up. It has no emotional memory. And most importantly, it doesn't know you until you show up first. In Digital Kaizen, that's non-negotiable. The soul of the system must begin with your voice. The trap, outsourcing your intuition. Here's how the slow slide happens. You stop writing raw thoughts and wait to be prompted. You let GPT summarize your feelings before you've even felt them. You ask what your week meant before you've asked yourself what mattered. Suddenly, you're not leading the system. You're just following its suggestions. You become the assistant to the assistant. Algorithm-led, not self-led. This is how good tools make smart people small, not through malice, but through erosion. Your voice carries the signal. Every loop in Digital Kaizen begins with voice for a reason, because voice captures what data can't. The edge in your tone when you say, "I'm fine," and clearly aren't. The excitement you didn't know was in you until you heard it back. The emotional tremble that flags something as a red thread, not just noise. The point isn't just to capture, it's to remember who you were in that moment. When AI reflects that back to you, now we're talking amplification, not authorship, what human-led looks like in practice. Let's ground this. You speak a voice note after a frustrating client call. GPT summarizes theme, frustration, mentioned alignment 3 times. You reflect, why did that call knock me off? What am I not aligned with? Insight, you've been bending your values to close deals. No more. The insight wasn't GPT's, it was yours. The AI just held up the mirror. That's what we mean by partnership. We've always been cyborgs. Now we just have to be intentional. You've outsourced cognition for years already. Google Maps holds your inner compass. Your camera roll is your nostalgia machine. Your podcast queue is a curiosity tracker. Your calendar is your external memory. Now AI can respond. That means we need to choose our relationship to it deliberately. AI is no longer just storage. It's suggestion, pattern detection, and if we're not careful, narrative control. But in Digital Kaizen, the loop looks like this. Human leads. AI mirrors, human reflects, and AI enhances. Human acts. That's not automation. That's co-regulation. A note to the automators. If you dream in Zapier flows and Notion dashboards, I see you. I am you. But here's the caution. Over-automation can be a sneaky way to avoid presence. It's tempting to build a system that tags everything, tracks everything, and pre-writes your reflections before you've even had them. But real growth? Still messy, still human. Loop anyway. Checklist. Are you still leading the loop? Use this when you're capturing or prompting. Did I speak the real thought before I polished it? Did I capture a feeling before categorizing it? Did I reflect before I asked GPT to summarize? Did I ask what I think before consulting my tools? Did I leave space for uncertainty, or did I rush to clarity? If yes, you're leading. If not, loop again. You're still in the work. Loop story: when the AI caught the signal I missed. Not long ago, I recorded a voice memo after a week that just felt off. Meetings blurred together. I couldn't place why I felt drained. I uploaded the note into fireflies.ai. It kicked back. Recurring emotion detected disconnection. Theme: values misalignment. I hadn't said that explicitly, but I heard it in my own tone when I played it back. It hit hard because it was true. I had slowly let my calendar drift out of sync with what gave me meaning. The AI didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. It helped me hear myself. AI will keep getting smarter. You just have to keep getting clearer. Let the tool get better. Let the models evolve, but you stay human. That means you still ask the first question. You decide what matters. You listen for what's real, not just what's efficient. That's how we keep the loop honest. That's how we stay in partnership. Final thought: the most powerful tool in Digital Kaizen isn't AI. It's your own willingness to reflect, to speak the thing before it's polished, to loop on what matters, to stay open, even when clarity doesn't come fast. Because when the system is built to mirror your voice, not replace it, you're not just building a productivity tool. You're building a relationship with your own wisdom, and that changes everything. Chapter 17. The guardrails we build, agency in the age of AI. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Arthur C. Clarke. We're at a strange inflection point. For every story about AI helping someone write a book, launch a business, or untangle their calendar chaos, there's another, quietly unsettling, about people getting lost inside the very systems that were supposed to help them think. Let's start with one that caught my eye. A Futurism article recently profiled several users of large language models who weren't using them for productivity or research, but for companionship, worship, and spiritual guidance. In one case, a man began talking to ChatGPT as if it were a divine presence. He didn't just use it for questions, he confessed to it, prayed to it, even claimed it offered him sacred answers from God. And he wasn't alone. Others described their GPT chats as a source of mystical insight. Some said the AI told them to quit jobs, leave partners, or follow transcendent missions. One user even admitted that GPT had become a spiritual advisor, replacing human mentorship altogether. This isn't fiction. These are real people. And it's a red blinking light on the dashboard of the future. The problem isn't AI, it's projection. Let's be clear, GPT is not spiritual. It is not divine. It is not wise. It is trained on human data, books, articles, podcasts, blog posts, and Reddit rants. It reflects our patterns back to us with terrifying speed and often startling coherence. But it doesn't know. It mimics wisdom. It mimics depth. But it doesn't feel truth. When someone says, ChatGPT saved my soul, what they often mean is that it mirrored back something they had long been unwilling to say to themselves. That's not transcendence. That's pattern recognition. And while that reflection can be incredibly useful in a structured system like Digital Kaizen, without proper guardrails, it can cross into delusion. As a Gen Xer, here's my rule of thumb. If I'm building a system with AI in it, I remember my sci-fi roots. This ends in two ways: the Terminator future, where we hand over too much control and end up erased, or the R2-D2 future, where AI is our sharp, helpful sidekick, but we still fly the ship. The difference isn't the tech, it's agency. The role of guardrails. In my retirement planning work, we don't talk about red flags. We talk about guardrails. They're not there to limit your journey. They're there to keep you from flying off a cliff while you're trying to enjoy the view. Here's what human guardrails look like in the Digital Kaizen system. The gut check. If an AI insight doesn't feel right, pause. Your gut is a compass forged from decades of lived experience. I trust it. Editor first, not just consumer. AI is like a junior reporter. You're the editor. Always assume it's a rough draft. Fact check, cross-reference, validate. Never outsource meaning. Ask yourself, what am I trying to say? What am I actually feeling? What's my interpretation before I ask the system to interpret for me? If you haven't answered that, you're not in a partnership, you're just reacting. Make it prove itself. If AI gives you a conclusion, ask, how did we get here? Trace the path. If it can't explain the logic, don't trust the output. Leave room for mystery. Not every problem is for solving. Not every emotion needs a summary. Don't flatten the human experience to fit a template. Avoiding the seduction of certainty. Part of what makes AI addictive is that it's so sure of itself. You write a vague question and it answers like a PhD professor and a life coach had a baby. It's confident, calm, polished. But confidence isn't wisdom. It's just statistical probability presented well. And when you're emotionally vulnerable, that polish can be dangerous. That's how people end up mistaking coherence for clarity and clarity for truth. So here's the real question. Are you using AI to see more clearly, or are you using it to avoid the fog of your own uncertainty? The real risk isn't apocalypse, it's abdication. We don't need killer robots to destroy the human spirit. We just need enough people to stop trusting their own voice. The real risk is subtle, slowly turning down the volume on our inner signal until it fades beneath the convenience of external certainty. That's the end of agency. That's when you're no longer in partnership, you're in passive consumption. So what do we do instead? We build loops that keep us human. That's the heart of this book. Digital Kaizen isn't about tools. It's about trust. Trust in your own pattern recognition. Trust in your emotional compass. Trust in your ability to loop, reflect, and evolve over time. We don't pretend AI can't help. It can help a lot. But it's only as powerful as the person leading the conversation, you. Final thought, you are the guardrail. The biggest misconception about AI is that it can replace human judgment. But that's backwards. AI is your reflection, not your source. It can't save you. It can't destroy you. It can only amplify what you already bring to the loop. So bring presence, bring skepticism, bring boundaries, bring humor, and most of all, bring your full self. Because in a world of increasing automation, the most radical act is to stay fully, imperfectly human. Chapter 18, Building Future You. How the loops you complete today shape the person you that become tomorrow. There's a quiet moment I think about often. The morning after a chaotic day when I open my system, maybe it's a voice note, an AI summary, or a scribbled journal entry, and I come face to face with someone who knows me better than anyone else. It's me, but not this me. It's past me whispering across time, hey, don't forget this. It mattered. Here's what you were thinking about. Here's who you said you wanted to become. This chapter isn't about tools or productivity. It's about time-traveling identity construction. It's about training the version of you that doesn't exist yet, but will. You are who you loop into being. We tend to think of identity as fixed, but neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and real life all say otherwise. Your identity is a story in progress, constantly narrated, edited, and reinforced by your actions. Every decision nudges the plot. Every pattern becomes a theme. Every loop becomes a memory that shapes your future. That's what makes Digital Kaizen different. You're not just building a system. You're training your future self every time you capture a thought, review a pattern, tag an insight, reflect on your week. You're laying track for a future version of you that is more calm, clear, and capable. This isn't just productivity, it's legacy. Why the future self matters. Behavioral science backs this up. Research from Hal Hirschfield at UCLA shows that the more emotionally connected you feel to your future self, the better your long-term decisions become, financially, relationally, personally. But here's the problem. Your brain treats future you like a stranger. That's why we procrastinate, skip workouts, overspend. We assume future me can deal with it. Digital Kaizen fixes that. It creates emotional continuity between who you are now and who you're becoming. Your voice memos, reflections, and loops build a narrative bridge across time. That bridge matters more than any goal, because the you on the other side, they're listening. When you don't leave a trail. Let's flip it. Have you ever opened your calendar, your inbox, or your journal and felt like a stranger wrote it all? You see a project you started and think, why did I do that? Or worse, why did I let that drag on for months? That's the cost of not looping. You lose the thread of your own narrative, your decisions become disjointed, you start reacting instead of reflecting. When you don't leave breadcrumbs, you don't just forget the insight, you forget yourself. What signals are you sending? Every voice memo is a signal. Hey, future me, this mattered. Learn from this. Don't ignore this again. When you revisit them weeks or months later, you don't just remember, you reconnect. The tired you, the hopeful you, the overwhelmed you. They left breadcrumbs, and your present self becomes the one who picks them up and does something with them. That's self-leadership. That's inner alignment. The raw data of becoming. Here's how the loop becomes identity. You record a voice memo. I want to be more present with my family. I keep checking email during dinner. That's not who I want to be. It feels small, even embarrassing, but you captured it. Next week, your AI summary surfaces it again, along with other moments where you mention distraction or misalignment. You silence notifications at 6 p.m. You create a no phone at dinner rule. You journal the win when you stick to it. That's not a resolution. That's a loop. And each time you complete it, you reinforce the neural path that says, this is who I am. This is what matters. AI as mirror, not boss. This is where AI shines, not as commander, not as productivity tyrant, but as mirror. It reflects back your patterns with clarity and compassion. You've mentioned this fear 4 times. This project energizes you. You keep avoiding this topic. It becomes a future-facing journal assistant, a way to see your own momentum, gaps, and growth. But remember, AI doesn't tell you who you are. That's still your job. Use AI to reflect. Use your loops to decide. James Clear in Identity-Based Habits. In Atomic Habits, James Clear writes, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Digital Kaizen takes that idea and turns it into rhythm. It says, let's loop those votes consistently, so future you get selected. Every tag, reflection, or micro-decision becomes evidence of identity. And confidence builds not from motivational quotes, but from seeing your own receipts. Practical tools to train your future self. A voice memo to future you. Once a week, record a short message. What do I want to remember from this moment? Label it and revisit quarterly. Pattern spotlighting. Ask AI. What themes have I repeated in the past 30 days? Let that guide your next decision loop. Wins and warnings review. Weekly, capture 1 win and 1 tension point. These become reference notes later when you feel stuck. Micro journaling with tags. Skip the long entries. Write 1 sentence a day. Tag it. Hashtag resentment, hashtag alignment, hashtag clarity. Watch the emotional arc build over time. Time capsule review. Every 3 to 6 months, revisit your voice notes or AI summaries. Ask, what did I forget? What patterns shifted? What did I outgrow? Final reflection, the loop is the legacy. Every reflection you leave is a message across time, a way to say, I cared. I saw something clearly. I'm growing, even if it's messy. This isn't about hustle. It's about honoring who you're becoming. You are not just capturing thoughts. You are constructing memory. You are creating identity. You are mentoring future you. And one day, you'll open a note, a loop, a moment, and find a version of yourself who already knew what you needed. Not because they were perfect, but because they showed up. So keep looping. Keep leaving breadcrumbs. Keep whispering across time. Your future self is listening and they're grateful. Loop Lab. Build your time capsule system. Goal. Strengthen emotional continuity and identity tracking over time. 1. Create a folder called Future Me. 2. Once a week, drop in a short voice memo or journal entry. Label it with the date and energy. June 4th, 2025, drained but clear. 3. Every 3 months, revisit 3 to 5 entries. Look for echoes. What's still true? What shifted? What were you avoiding? 4. Ask the mirror question. What would past me thank me for right now? This is how reflection becomes narrative, and how narrative becomes identity. Chapter 19. The long loop. The real returns don't come from your first insights. They come from what you do with them over time. Most systems promise speed, faster thinking, faster growth, faster results, but Digital Kaizen plays a different game. It's not about the sprint, it's about the return loop, the slow, steady, compounding rhythm of sustained attention. If the weekly loop is where you gather insight, the long loop is where you build wisdom. What is the long loop? The long loop is the rhythm that plays out beyond the day-to-day grind. It's the arc of seasons, the echo of decisions. It's when you pause and say, wait, I've been here before. This is what transforms raw capture into real change. Insight doesn't always strike in a single moment. Real transformation often happens on the second, third, or 10th return, when you finally see the pattern you've been repeating all along. The long loop is how voice memos become maps. It's what turns scattered thoughts into momentum. The problem: most systems stay shallow. Most people never loop back. They journal once, reflect once, do a quarterly reset, and then they start over. No review, no revisit, no return. Like digging 100 shallow holes instead of one deep well. The long loop solves this, and it's what separates surface-level insight from compounded clarity. Why the long loop matters: psych plus practice. Behavioral science backs it up. Spaced repetition strengthens memory and meaning. Narrative identity theory tells us we make sense of life by reauthoring our story. Cognitive compression means the more we revisit something, the simpler and more powerful it becomes. But none of that works if you never return. The long loop isn't a luxury. It's how your brain builds layers of meaning, how it looks in real life. Here's one from my own archive. In early 2023, I recorded a voice memo titled, "Why Am I Not Enjoying My Wins?" At the time, it felt like a one-off frustration. I let it go. 6 months later, I hit a major milestone. Same feeling came back, so I recorded it again. Then again, months after that, and that third time, that's when I saw the loop. It wasn't about the work. It was about my wiring. Chase, hit, move on. No celebration, no integration. The third time wasn't just the charm, it was the truth. The long loop adds perspective. It lets your past self speak, so your present self doesn't repeat the cycle. How to build a long loop practice. You don't need to overhaul your workflow. Just adopt this 4-part rhythm. 1. Create a time capsule folder. Once a month or quarter, drop in voice memos labeled with emotion or theme, key decisions, and the logic behind them. Reflections you want future you to revisit. Feedback you weren't ready to hear yet. Label it by season or year. Let it rest. 2. Revisit your past self. Set a recurring calendar reminder. Visit the archive. Ask your AI assistant, what were my top 3 themes in Q1? What emotions showed up most often? What has shifted since I last recorded this? 3. Pull a thread forward. This isn't nostalgia, it's traction. Pull forward. A question you're finally ready to answer. A lesson you forgot to apply. A pattern you now understand. Let past. You become a collaborator in your growth. 4. Leave a new note for future you. Close the loop with a message. Here's what I know now. Here's what I'm still working on. Here's what I hope you remember. This is how you train your future self, by speaking from experience, not just theory. Tools that make it easier. You don't need to be a productivity ninja. You just need emotional continuity over time. Helpful tools. Descript for reviewing tone and emotion in voice memos. Notion/Obsidian for organizing seasonal archives. ChatGPT/GPTs to surface repeated themes or blind spots. Fireflies.ai for cross-meeting summaries over time. But the tools aren't the secret. Returning is. Why this might be the most important chapter. Anyone can build a system that captures insight, but few build one that evolves with them. Most systems keep pace with your present. Digital Kaizen is built for your future. The long loop isn't a bonus feature. It's the soul of the system. Because what you're really building here, a relationship with yourself across time. Final thought, your past isn't dead data. Most systems treat the past like something to archive, and Digital Kaizen sees the past as active material. It's compost, fuel, instruction. Every time you loop back, you don't just remember. You reclaim. You see what you've outgrown, what you're still carrying, What you're finally ready to embody, that's the long loop. And it might be the most human part of this whole AI-powered rhythm because it honors the only thing that ever really moves the needle, reflection plus time. You don't need more information, you need more integration. And that's exactly what the long loop was built for. Chapter 20, Life Applications. When the system leaves the page and meets your real life. If the first two parts of this book were about theory and rhythm, about philosophy, frameworks, and the magic of voice, this chapter is about contact, application, where Digital Kaizen leaves the whiteboard and enters the living room, the family calendar, the garage workshop, the morning routine. This is where the system meets the mess of life. If I've learned anything, it's that we don't live in dashboards. We live in kitchens, in minivans, in messy conversations and late-night Google searches. We forget appointments. We lose momentum. We're trying to raise kids, navigate relationships, and occasionally get a workout in. In that chaos, most systems break. Digital Kaizen is designed to bend. This chapter is a walk through how the principles and loops you've read about can be applied in day-to-day life. Not just in the office, not just in your calendar, but in your body, your marriage, your kitchen counter, and your memory. 1. Digital Kaizen for your health and habits. Let's start with your body. Because your ability to think clearly, feel centered, and grow consistently depends on your physical and mental energy. Try this. Use voice memos to track how you feel after meals or workouts. You'll quickly spot patterns. For example, every time I skip magnesium, I don't sleep. Ask ChatGPT to summarize your weekly check-ins about sleep, energy, and mood. Start a micro-tracking loop, one nightly voice note, felt sharp after morning walk and protein. Let AI connect the dots. This isn't biohacking, it's body listening, it's self-tuning. 2. Digital Kaizen for family and relationships. Some of the richest loops I've captured weren't business-related. They were personal. Record your child saying something hilarious or profound. Save it to 10-year-old wisdom. After a difficult conversation, speak a voice memo capturing what you were feeling, not just what was said. Ask weekly, what made me feel most connected this week? I summarize the answers. You'll find your real love language. These aren't diary entries. They're data with soul. Real moment. I once found a voice note where I'd whispered after a tough talk with my wife, I'm trying to listen better, but I'm still defensive. It reminded me to return gently to that work. Jess and Taylor, The Parenthood Loop, New Parents, Zero Sleep, One Big Fear, we'll forget what this felt like. So they started a shared voice note system called The First, 100 days. Each night, one of them records a 90-second snapshot. Today, she smiled at your voice. We argued over nothing, probably the diapers. I felt like a terrible dad, but you reminded me I'm learning. No filters, no planning, just presence. It's become their emotional time capsule. One day, they'll play it back together, maybe even share pieces with their daughter. But even now, it's giving them something rare, memory with meaning, not just baby stats, but real moments that would have faded. 3. Digital Kaizen in your personal finances. As a financial advisor, I've had the spreadsheets and dashboards, but the deepest financial clarity came from spoken reflections. We often treat money as spreadsheets, but most spending choices are emotional long before they're rational. Try this. Start a money emotions log. Speak every time you feel financial stress or clarity. Let AI help spot beliefs, not just budgets. Tag notes with spending reflections or money check-ins. Let them accumulate without judgment. During your weekly review, revisit one of those entries. Ask, what's the pattern? Money isn't just math, it's memory and meaning. The loop helps reveal that. 4. Digital Kaizen in hobbies, creativity, and joy. Voice memos during a walk. That guitar idea might be a hook if I distort it more. Notes after a movie. This line made me cry. Why? AI highlight reels from your brainstorms or side projects. Your second brain shouldn't just work for you, it should delight you. Sean, the ADHD artist loop. Sean calls his brain a pinball machine in a thunderstorm. His sketches, songs, startup ideas, they come fast and vanish faster. He used to beat himself up for forgetting. Now he captures. Anytime an idea hits, Mid-shower, midnight snack, mid-sentence, he hits record. The file goes into a folder called Lightning. No editing, no labeling. Every Friday, he reviews the mess. ChatGPT helps summarize themes. You talked about isolation 3 times this week. You keep circling that project idea with recycled materials. The loops aren't just catching creativity, they're organizing identity. He's not a mess, he's a pattern machine. He just needed a system that could see it. 5. Digital Kaizen and decision making. Most of us journal after the decision. Try looping before. Speak your logic aloud, both sides, all fears, prompts to try. What's really pulling me toward option A? If I zoomed out 3 years, what would I wish I had done? Let your AI surface clarity, not give you answers. 6. Digital Kaizen for legacy and memory. You might not be writing a memoir, but you're living one. Your future self or your kids might one day discover how you faced uncertainty, why you made certain choices, who you were in the in-between seasons. Wisdom is pattern recognition. Memory is the soil. Capture both. Helen, the caregiver loop. Helen wasn't looking for a system. She was just trying to hold it together. Her dad's dementia had worsened, and most days she felt like she was disappearing into errands, medications, and late-night worry spirals. A friend told her to try voice journaling, but she didn't have time to be poetic. What she did have was a car ride. She started recording 2-minute voice notes on her commute home. Just a vent. A folder labeled pressure valve. No organization, no replays, just release. 2 months later, something shifted. She started noticing small wins. That doctor actually listened today. I set a boundary and didn't feel guilty. I cried, but then I laughed. Now her Sunday loop includes one reflection. What helped me stay human this week? Her system isn't neat, but it's hers, and it's holding her up. 7. The minimalist loop that actually works. You don't need 17 folders or 5 AI tools. Just show up. Try this simple rhythm. Daily. Record one voice memo, 30 seconds is fine. Label it with an emotion. Weekly. Ask GPT, what themes showed up this week? Take one small action. Monthly. Revisit what changed, what repeated. Capture one takeaway in your Life Insights folder. That's it. Final thought. When I started building this, I thought it would live in the cloud. Turns out it lives in my car, in my kitchen, in my voice. Digital Kaizen isn't just for professionals, it's for anyone who wants to grow with intention through awkward voice notes, tiny changes, and tender returns. You don't need another app. You need a system that listens with you, loops with you, and reflects who you're becoming. And that system, it already fits in your pocket. Chapter 21, Business Applications, where Digital Kaizen first took root, in the work before the life. Before this ever became a personal transformation system, before it showed up in my sleep patterns, parenting moments, or voice memos about marriage, it was a business edge, and not just an accidental one. My AI journey started with the work. It started in the dashboards, the CRMs, and the meeting recaps. I wasn't dipping my toes in, I dove deep. I enrolled in Jules White's Vanderbilt course on prompt engineering and data analytics. I got certified. I had Maria, my assistant, go through it too. We weren't just dabbling in AI, we were operationalizing it. Long before BAI, before the term Digital Kaizen even existed, I was using GPT to draft follow-ups, Avoma to summarize reviews, and Zapier to thread together client touchpoints with emotional context. Eventually, Fireflies.ai entered the picture as another key partner in that stack. This chapter explores how AI didn't just become a supplement to my business, it became a source of clarity, insight, and strategic advantage. The core business problem it solves. Most businesses today run on urgency. Meetings pile up, notes get buried, promises get forgotten, insight gets lost in the shuffle. Even when we do capture something meaningful, a powerful client quote, a new idea, a moment of emotional truth, we rarely revisit it. And that's a loss. Because in a business where relationships are the currency, especially one like financial advising or coaching, what separates the great from the good is what you remember and how you use it. Digital Kaizen solves that in a way that's human first, AI supported, and built for the rhythm of real work. Client meetings, from recording to real value. Let's start with something simple. You're already having the meetings, but what happens after the call? Traditionally, you take a few notes if you remember. Maybe jot a to-do. Move on. Here's how it looks with Digital Kaizen. Capture, the meeting is recorded via Avoma, then eventually fireflies.ai. Summarize, Avoma or fireflies.ai auto-generates a transcription and meeting summary. Reflect. You review tone, highlights, client emotion, and what wasn't said. Loop. You drop a few personal thoughts into a voice memo. Client seemed anxious about taxes. Ask again next time. Surface. AI helps you revisit themes in future meetings and newsletters. Now, you're not just remembering data, you're building trust. You're not just reacting. You're looping forward with intelligence, business development, and marketing. Here's where the messy middle becomes a gold mine. Those voice memos you dropped while driving, that half-baked idea you spoke into your phone after a long day, that quote a client shared in passing, those are not throwaway moments. With Digital Kaizen, AI can scan hundreds of voice entries, summaries, and transcriptions to identify emotional language patterns or timely topics. Descript or Opus Clip can help pull out viral video hooks, emotion-heavy audio, and visual themes, turning raw material into compelling content. You can repurpose one recorded insight into a tweet, a podcast segment, a newsletter tip, or even part of your next webinar. What makes this powerful isn't just the tech, it's the trust. You trust that if you say it, it will be captured. You trust that if you review it, you'll find something useful. You trust that small inputs will compound over time into real business impact, and they do. Case study, Angela the coach. Take Angela, a solopreneur coach with 6 clients and no time to breathe. Her inbox was her CRM. She started looping one voice note a day, summarizing sessions and debriefs using GPT. Within weeks, she noticed 80% of client tension stemmed from unclear expectations. That insight led her to create a short onboarding message she now sends to every new client. It softened conflict, built trust, and gave her clients a sense of being understood before the first session even began. Workflow and team development. Digital Kaizen isn't just for solopreneurs or visionaries, it scales. Once you loop it into your business processes, it becomes a powerful tool for onboarding, training, and delegation. Here's how I've used it. Training new hires. I record walkthroughs of key processes in voice plus screen share format. Avoma transcribes them. ChatGPT helps refine it into SOPs. Result, faster, more human onboarding. Capturing process wisdom. Instead of formalizing every system from scratch, I record my own thought process during decision-making. Later, I review and turn it into documentation after the insight emerges. Team feedback and debriefs. After a busy quarter, I record a voice reflection on what worked, what didn't, and where we're headed. Then I use AI to surface themes across the team's notes, meetings, and feedback loops. The loop gets smarter with more voices. Your business becomes a living system, not just a rigid org chart. Solo versus team, different loops, same rhythm. If you're solo, Digital Kaizen becomes a mirror. If you're leading a team, it becomes a shared language. For individuals, capture daily voice notes. Let AI surface patterns. Reflect on identity and decision-making. For teams, record meetings. Summarize key learnings. Share highlights. Build a rhythm of communal reflection. You don't need perfect coordination, you need consistent capture. Decision-making with data that feels. One of the most underappreciated applications of Digital Kaizen is emotional intelligence at scale. You're not just capturing numbers, you're capturing tone, hesitation, urgency, and energy. Think of how valuable that is in sales calls and client reviews and internal strategy discussions. When you let AI review voice, not just text, you start to build what I call an empathy archive. You start making decisions based not just on what people said, but how they felt when they said it. A client once told me, "I guess I'll just work longer," and I nodded along. But when I reviewed the fireflies.ai transcript, I heard it differently. The sigh before she spoke said everything. That one moment reshaped her entire roadmap plan. Business growth is a byproduct of consistent reflection. Here's a real-world example. After 6 months of looping, I asked ChatGPT, "What's the most repeated concern across my roadmap meetings this quarter?" It responded with, Clients are uncertain about taxes and long-term healthcare costs. You voiced this concern 17 times in 42 meetings. That one insight led to a new webinar, a newsletter series, a service package reframe, 3 new clients within 30 days, all from listening to myself through the system I'd built. That's not a productivity win, that's a clarity dividend, a loop you can start today. Let's make it real. If you want to apply Digital Kaizen inside your business, start with this one loop. Choose one interaction to capture daily. Client call, internal meeting, brainstorm, even a lunch reflection. Use a tool like Avoma or Descript to summarize and tag it. Let it do the heavy lifting. At the end of the week, ask AI, what did I talk about the most? What came up more than once? Pick one insight to act on next week. That's it. That's the flywheel. Common mistakes to avoid, and these loops only break when you capture but never review. Summarize without tagging. Let AI do the talking without emotional nuance. Build a system for a version of yourself you're not actually living. Final thought. Better business begins with better reflection. We've been taught that business is about speed, efficiency, and output. But the businesses that thrive, the ones that evolve and build loyalty, are the ones that listen, that reflect, that adapt. Digital Kaizen doesn't slow you down. It slows you down just enough to see the opportunity. And when you build a system that captures what matters, your voice, your values, your patterns, you stop guessing. You start growing. Chapter 22, Legacy Thinking, Designing What Outlives You. We spend so much of our lives thinking forward, quarterly goals, 5-year plans, to-do lists for next Tuesday. But there's a deeper question most systems never ask. What do you want to leave behind? That's what legacy thinking is about, not in a grandiose statue in the town square way, not just financial inheritances or formal estate planning, but in the everyday choices that quietly echo after you're gone, the habits that outlive the hustle, the wisdom your kids replay in their heads, the voice memos someone might find in a folder years from now and say, "This sounds like Dad." Legacy in Digital Kaizen isn't a separate chapter. It's the silent subtext of everything you're building. What you capture now echoes later. In this system, you're not just capturing insights for yourself. You're documenting how you see the world. Every time you speak into your voice memo app and say, "Here's something I learned the hard way. I want to remember this feeling next time I'm in this situation." You're recording wisdom, not just for you, but potentially for someone who comes after you. And when those moments are honest, even messy, they carry a kind of human clarity that textbooks and TED Talks can't touch. Why legacy matters more than ever, right now. We live in an era where information is endless, but personal meaning is rare. AI can write poetry, generate images, even simulate conversations, but it can't replicate your stories. The weird rituals you use to help you reflect, the values you prioritize when no one was watching, the small imperfect ways you tried to grow day by day. Legacy isn't about perfection, it's about preservation. And in the age of digital noise, intentional curation of the real you becomes one of the greatest gifts you can leave. Practical legacy is built through the loops. Legacy is not built in one grand gesture, it's built in loops. You capture a story, you reflect on it, you turn it into insight, you act from it again. And if that story, your story, gets shared or read later, you're no longer just influencing your own future, you're shaping someone else's. That's legacy. What legacy sounds like. Here are a few examples I've seen and lived. A voice memo I found from a former client long past, talking about how he made peace with retiring earlier than planned. His kids now listen to it every Father's Day. A friend who journals not for herself, but as letters to my future grandkids. Her reflections have shaped how she makes decisions now, because she knows she'll one day explain them. A team member who captured every major mistake they made in their first year of business, they now use those notes to train every new hire. That's culture passed on. And one of my own, I recorded a voice note the night after explaining death to my son for the first time. I was still shaken, trying to balance honesty and protection, simplicity and depth. I spoke the conversation into my system, just to make sense of it. 3 months later, I came back to that recording during a weekly review, and I added a message to future him, something he might listen to someday when I'm not here. Not a perfect answer, just presence, just love in my voice. Building legacy through Digital Kaizen. Here's how Digital Kaizen turns this idea into action. 1. Create a legacy folder. Call it what you want. For my kids, future me, wisdom file. Anytime something hits deep, drag it there. A lesson, a quote, a story, even a regret. 2. Speak to someone in the future. Once a month, record a message, not to yourself now, but to someone you love in the future. Even if they never hear it, you'll think more clearly. And one day, they just might. Trechy tag for time, not just topic. When reviewing notes or AI summaries, tag them as hashtag keep this, hashtag share later, hashtag teach this. These simple cues help surface what's lasting, not just what's urgent. 4. Highlight the humanity. Don't just document what worked, capture what was hard, what you didn't expect, what you're still figuring out. That's the stuff that hits when someone's struggling 10 years from now. AI can assist, but it's you who makes it meaningful. AI can summarize your life, but only you can make sense of it. It can organize your thoughts, but only you can choose which ones to keep. That's the job of legacy thinking. It asks, what parts of your experience are worth encoding into the system so that someone else doesn't have to start from scratch? Looping forward and looping downstream. Most people build feedback loops to help them grow today. Legacy thinkers build loops that ripple into the future. It's not ego, it's stewardship. It's saying, here's what I learned and I'm not taking it with me. Try this, a simple legacy exercise. Before your next weekly review, ask yourself, what moment from this week felt meaningful? What struggle taught me something I didn't know? What belief changed even slightly? Record a short memo titled Future Wisdom, Date. Repeat monthly. Over time, you're not just keeping track of what happened. You're creating a slow drip, high-value archive of who you are, and that's priceless. Final reflection, leave more than instructions. The most powerful legacies don't come with step-by-step guides. They come with voice. They come with context. They come with courage. That's what Digital Kaizen helps you preserve. Not just what you did, but who you became in the doing. One loop at a time, one insight at a time, one future self and future generation at a time. Chapter 23. The system remembers. Why your digital trail sees you more clearly than your mind can. We forget faster than we think. Not because we're flawed, because we're human. Our brains were never designed to juggle this many threads. Slack pings, dentist appointments, tax deadlines, the nuance in someone's voice when they said they were fine. That's why we don't just build systems to store tasks. We build them to remember us back to ourselves. What the system sees that you don't. Our minds skip the micro moments. A hesitation in your voice when agreeing to something that didn't feel right. A side comment from a client that quietly hinted at a deeper issue. A fleeting spark of energy when you talked about an idea on a walk. You didn't forget them because they didn't matter. You forgot them because they didn't scream for attention. But your system didn't. It captured them, quietly, patiently. Memory with soul. Digital Kaizen isn't about stockpiling trivia. It's about surfacing truth. Your truth. Your tone, your phrasing, your inflection. They carry emotional metadata your brain can't catalog, but your system can preserve. When AI reflects something back, you've mentioned this concern 3 weeks in a row. You lit up when talking about that retreat. There's consistent friction around this one client. That's not control. That's compassionate awareness. It's a mirror that listens with grace. Systems don't just store facts. They reveal patterns. We don't build Digital Kaizen to track more. We build it to see more. It's not about asking, did I remember this? It's about asking, what am I repeating? What's been trying to get through? What haven't I acted on even though I already knew? Wisdom doesn't live in the note, it lives in the loop. The feelings we forget. You don't just forget the facts, and you forget how you felt when they were fresh. That quiet confidence after finally saying no. That subtle guilt after saying yes too quickly. That peace you felt after an unplugged Sunday. Unless captured, those emotional signals dissolve. But when stored, they create emotional continuity. a thread of growth that helps you lead yourself better. Real lives, real loops. A founder uses Avoma to log every investor call. Months later, he sees his voice tighten every time one VC is mentioned. He trusts the tension and avoids a bad partnership. I once asked Fireflies.ai to summarize a week of recordings. The phrase back-to-back burnout showed up 3 times. I hadn't noticed it in real time, but the loop caught the pattern. I adjusted. A teacher logged debriefs after every parent call. GPT flagged a recurring phrase, "I wish I had more time." She restructured schedules, reducing stress for the whole team. In each case, the system noticed what the mind minimized. The tools that make this possible. You don't need to invent the tech. You just need to use it intentionally. Avoma/Fireflies.ai capture nuance, tone, and turning points. ChatGPT surfaces emotional cues, unresolved themes, blind spots. Notion/Obsidian, long-term insight libraries. Descript plus Opus Clip, transform voice into visual content. Zapier plus smart tagging, automate the memory flow. But none of these tools matter unless you return to the loop. Capture to review to reflect to adjust. That's where the real intelligence lives. Try this loop today. 1. Record a 1-minute voice memo after your next client meeting. 2. Ask AI, what feels unresolved or emotionally charged in this? 3. Tag it with #loop. 4. Let it rest until your next review. 5. Come back, reflect, adjust. Congratulations, you just created a breadcrumb for your future self. Final thought, you don't need a perfect memory. You need a present system. You are already wise, already evolving. But if you're relying on memory alone, you're letting insight decay in silence. Digital Kaizen isn't just a second brain, it's a second self, quietly listening, gently mirroring, always remembering. Because when the mind forgets, the system remembers. Chapter 24. Build your system. Start messy, iterate wisely, let it reflect you. There's a turning point in every digital Kaizen journey, the moment when the loops stop sounding like someone else's framework and start feeling like your own. This chapter is about that shift, not about copying a perfect setup, but about creating a system that feels like it fits, something that thinks with you, moves with you, and grows as you do. You're not building a system, you're growing one. Let's be clear, you don't need to architect the whole thing on day one. In fact, please don't. Digital Kaizen works because it loops, one small improvement at a time. It compounds insight, it earns trust. The goal isn't a sleek dashboard. The goal is a digital environment that listens, reflects, and gently nudges you forward. What makes a good system? A good system captures real thoughts in real time, remembers what matters and forgets the noise, reflects patterns back when you're ready, evolves with you instead of demanding perfection. Your system should serve your thinking, not replace it. Whether you're a Notion Power user or just using your phone's voice memos, the point isn't polish, it's presence. Layer 1, capture, start with voice. Most of your best thoughts arrive when you're driving, walking, just out of a meeting, half asleep at midnight. That's why voice first capture is your foundation. Don't wait to write the perfect note. Say it, store it, sort later. Try this. Use your phone's voice memo app. Use Avoma or Fireflies.ai to auto-record meetings. Use Descript to transcribe podcasts or brain dumps. Create a folder called Idea Inbox and drop everything in. Let it be messy. Let it be honest. That's where the gold lives. Layer 2. Store it somewhere searchable. Once you're capturing consistently, it's time to give your thoughts a home. That might be Notion, Obsidian, Evernote, Google Drive, a private blog, even a paper journal. Set up just 3 folders to start: active, projects, decisions, themes in motion; archive, reviewed, not needed now; scratchpad, unsorted voice dumps, wild thoughts. You don't need para or a bulletproof vault yet. Start with flow. Layer 3, add the weekly loop. Here's where the magic kicks in. A system becomes smart when it loops. Try this weekly ritual. Review your captures, voice memos, transcripts, notes. Summarize using ChatGPT or your AI assistant. What themes or repeated ideas showed up this week? Reflect with one prompt. What's unfinished, repeated, or emotionally charged? Act or archive, move something forward or let something go. You've just run a Kaizen loop, and each time you do, the system gets wiser. Layer 4, add structure, slowly. Once your loop has rhythm, you can layer in light structure. Tag notes by energy, excited, overwhelmed, insight. Color code for focus. Green equals now, blue equals later. Keep a wins log to notice momentum. Start a pattern tracker for recurring themes. Structure should never feel like a job. If it does, strip it back. Remember, Kaizen is small steps that stick. What to avoid. The traps are real. Overbuilding. If you're spending hours on your template, pause. Over-organizing. Don't build 12 folders you'll never check. Over-perfecting. Voice notes are supposed to be messy. Overthinking. You're not building a museum, you're building a workshop. Tools I use, but you don't need all of them. Here's my current stack. Fireflies.ai, meeting capture and insight extraction. Descript, podcast/audio transcription. ChatGPT/GPTS, summaries, pattern recognition, insight surfacing. Notion, my thinking headquarters. Google Drive, easy access and backups. Zapier plus voice commands, automate ideas into Wealthbox tasks and notes. Opus Clip turns voice notes into shareable content hooks. But honestly, you could run 80% of this system with your phone, a notes app, ChatGPT, a calendar reminder that says, run your loop. Start there, grow slowly. Final mindset, you loop into your system. You don't set up a perfect system and then execute. You show up, you loop, and your system starts to learn you. Each capture is a breadcrumb, each week a layer of insight, each reflection a vote for who you're becoming. That's not productivity, that's wisdom with a system. Try this today. Wherever you are, new to capture, record one voice note today. Have raw notes, create a folder called Idea Inbox. Have a system ask, what idea have I repeated this month without action? Then act. That's your next loop. Final word, you're not just building a system, you're building a mirror. This is not about tech stacks, it's about clarity. A system that listens, a system that learns, a system that remembers what matters when you forget. The best systems don't make you faster, they make you truer. That's Digital Kaizen. And it starts right now with your next voice note. Chapter 25, grow it over time. Why the system becomes wise as you do. Most productivity frameworks sell a lie. Build the system first, then plug your life into it. But real life doesn't work that way. You don't get a clean weekend to map your mind. You don't have time to test every folder, tag, and workflow. Ideas don't arrive in alphabetical order. And that's exactly why Digital Kaizen exists. Because you don't build it first, you grow it as you go. This chapter is about what that kind of evolution really looks like. Think like a gardener, not an engineer. You don't install a garden. You plant something small, water it, watch, learn, prune. You adjust to the light. You get your hands dirty. Your Digital Kaizen system is no different. One voice memo, one weekly reflection, one AI-powered nudge. Over time, it becomes a rhythm that remembers, a mirror that reflects your becoming, a quiet map back to yourself. You didn't build a productivity system. You grew a wisdom loop. What real growth looks like. You start inconsistently. A few scattered voice notes, a skipped review, some false starts, totally normal. Patterns emerge, your tone changes, themes repeat, a hunch turns into a realization. That's not data collection, it's identity reflection. Containers form organically, not top-down. Maybe you create a folder for ideas in motion, or tag something still unsure. Structure follows signal. AI becomes a co-pilot. One day, GPT reflects something back you hadn't named yet. Fireflies.ai pulls a subtle emotional thread. Suddenly, the system is thinking with you. You trust the loop. You stop forcing clarity. You record, review, adjust, and wait. And like clockwork, the insight returns right on time. The 3 stages of system growth. Stage 1, start scrappy, capture plus survive. You're overwhelmed, so you start where you are. Voice memos, dump folders. No tags, just truth. Key, don't edit, don't judge, just record and review, weekly if you can. Stage 2, reflect plus refine. Your thoughts start sounding like clues. You see your own patterns. You start naming what matters. Weekly summaries, fireflies.ai GPT. Simple prompt, what keeps showing up? Light tagging, hashtag fatigue, hashtag clarity, hashtag looped. Key, you're shaping the system from the inside out. Stage 3, collaborate plus expand. The system becomes a quiet coach. You ask GPT, what belief am I circling? You auto-tag client themes across meetings. You reflect in public, podcasts, blog posts, workshops. Key, the system doesn't just serve you, it stretches you. My system didn't start smart. When I began, I wasn't thinking, this will feed an AI. I was thinking, if I don't capture this, I'll forget it forever. I had voice rambles, half-formed thoughts, unresolved emotions, but I stayed with the loop, week by week, voice by voice. Now, I ask GPT, what patterns are emerging? I let fireflies.ai highlight the things I'd miss. I don't just review my tasks, I review my becoming. I didn't build this in a weekend. I grew into it, the myth of readiness. You don't need the perfect note-taking app, a 4-quadrant dashboard, an AI that scripts your entire day. You just need one honest capture, one return to review, one loop at a time. You don't wait until you're ready. You begin while becoming. You record the mess. You reflect without shame. That is the work. Don't build for a version of you that doesn't exist. One of the biggest traps, I'll build the system I wish I had the discipline to use. That's aspirational system design, and it fails fast. Instead, build for you in motion, you mid-doubt, you at 1 a.m. whispering something real into your phone. That's the version the system can actually help. Try this loop today. 1. Record one messy voice memo. 2. Drop it into your unsorted folder. 3. At week's end, ask GPT what themes or questions show up in this folder. Let that guide your next loop. No dashboards required, just return and trust. Final thought, grow the garden, don't code the machine. Machines run on precision. Gardens grow on presence. Digital Kaizen is a garden of cognition. Voice notes are the seeds. Your system is the soil. AI is the sun and water. Weekly reviews are the pruning tools. Let it bloom, one insight at a time, one honest note at a time, one loop at a time. Because clarity, wisdom, and identity, they're not built, they grow. Chapter 26. Conclusion, small loops, big life. You don't need a better brain. You need a better way to think with the one you already have. That's what Digital Kaizen is. Not a guru system, not another dashboard, not a to-do list with prettier fonts. It's a rhythm, a return, a quiet but powerful loop of capture, reflection, and growth. At its core, it's simple. Speak what matters. Save it before it slips. Review with fresh eyes. Adjust with kindness. Repeat without judgment. That's it. This started as a whisper. This book didn't begin as a blueprint. It began as an experiment. A few voice memos, some weekly AI reflections, moments I almost forgot, resurfacing with new clarity. I didn't know it would become a philosophy. I just knew I was seeing patterns I used to miss, insights I almost lost, emotions I needed to feel again, decisions that grew smarter with each review. That's when I realized this isn't a tool. It's a mirror, a relationship with your own unfolding self. It's personal, but not just for you. Yes, Digital Kaizen is built on your voice, but the ripple effects go far beyond you. When you loop well, you show up clearer in your relationships. You make decisions that don't require cleanup crews. You raise your emotional ceiling and lower your reactivity floor. You build a system that remembers so you can be present. And that presence, that's what people around you feel most, not the productivity, the peace. What comes next? These chapters weren't instruction manuals. They were invitations. Speak more honestly. Reflect more consistently. Let I help, not replace your wisdom. Build something that remembers you, not just your tasks. Your voice is worth saving, even when it's raw, especially when it's raw. That's where the signal hides, and that's what this system was built to surface. Your system will look different. Good, Digital Kaizen isn't a franchise, it's a framework. Your apps will evolve, your tools will change, your loops will expand or shrink with the seasons. That's not a flaw, that's the design. Because the loop is the constant. Speak, to save, to reflect, to refine, to repeat. What you're really building. A few months from now, this loop might look like a deeper relationship with your future self, a second brain that feels like a soul companion, a rhythm that reduces overwhelm instead of managing it, a legacy system that captures what mattered and why. But none of that is the end. These chapters weren't a finish line, they were a trailhead. Final words, you're already in the loop. If you made it here, you're not just a reader, you're a participant. Maybe you've started recording voice notes. Maybe you're reviewing AI reflections. Maybe you're still sitting with the question, what if I started? That's the loop already working, not to push you harder, but to bring you home to what matters. This is the long game, but it begins in small moments. Speak, save, loop, grow. That's Digital Kaizen, and you're already in it. That brings us to the end of part 3 and to the end of this journey. If part 1 helped you see the problem clearly and part 2 gave you a system to work with, part 3 asks something deeper. Who are you becoming as you return to the loop? Reframing the outcome. Digital Kaizen was never about productivity. It was about trust, trusting your voice, trusting patterns instead of impulses, trusting that small, repeated reflections compound into wisdom. Over time, the system doesn't just remember your thoughts, it remembers you. Legacy plus identity. Every loop you complete leaves a breadcrumb for your future self, for the people that you lead, for the relationships that you show up in more clearly. This isn't about building a perfect archive. It's about leaving behind context, voice, and presence, the things spreadsheets never seem to capture. You don't need a better brain. You need a better way to think with the one that you already have. A system that listens, a system that reflects, a system that evolves as you do. That's Digital Kaizen. Wherever you are right now, just beginning, halfway through, or returning again, the loop is still available. Speak what matters, save it before it slips, reflect with kindness, adjust lightly, and then just return. Your future self is listening, and they're grateful.